this is Miss Janelle from the Ella Johnson Library, and today we have another episode of Little Stitches. For Little Stitches this month, we are going to be making, you recognize this, we're going to be making a wet felted pumpkin. So, we've done some wet felting before in a plastic bag, but this time we're going to wet felt with our hands, so it's going to be a little bit different. I do recommend putting down a towel or being in a space like a kitchen where you can get some water splashed around. So in the kit that you picked up from the library, you should have orange roving, green roving, some thread, a needle, and some cord, which I'll show you what we're going to do with that later. What you need is hot water and dish soap, and again, somewhere that you can do this. So I'm going to get rid of our needle and thread. We don't need that right now. I also recommend a pair of scissors, maybe some gloves, and you can use a plastic bag like we did in the previous one, but I would recommend using your hands. So what you need to do first is mix up some water. This is some hot water I got from the tap. You don't need a whole lot. Maybe a cup or two. And then you're gonna put in dish soap. I recommend using Dawn specifically, but if you don't have it, that's fine. You might just have to use a little bit extra. So you want it just so the water turns blue. So the reason we use soap and water, if you've ever accidentally washed a wool sweater before, it causes the fibers to shrink and contract. So roving, this stuff that looks like hair, is made of sheep's wool. So they shear the sheep, they brush it, they wash it, and then they dye it, and then they card it, which means that they brush it so that it's nice and super straight like this. So what we need to do is pull those strands apart, because we don't want it to be perfectly straight. When I say pull, I mean really pull them apart. We don't want any lines occurring. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take our roving and we're going to roll it up into a ball. Then we're going to dip it in water that has soap in it, and then we're going to roll it and roll it and roll it and roll it until it becomes tight little wool ball for us to make a pumpkin. So I've pulled all my orange roving apart. Next, what I need to do is form the ball. Now, you're going to think that this is going to make a giant pumpkin, but really, when you have roving and you add water, squeeze it in your hand as tight as you can. That's how big your object is actually going to be. Because through the friction of the soapy water in our hand, it's going to shrink the fibers and make them roll in on themselves. So I started with this, and it's gonna wind up being this size. You can see the difference. So, what we need to do is create a type of ball. So we're gonna kinda fold it in half like this. And just start wrapping it in different directions. Because we don't want any seams on our pumpkin. We're gonna just wrap it and wrap it and wrap it. You can see it's starting to form a little bit of a ball. All right, now that we have our ball formed, you can twist it a little bit. And then we have this big top here, and we're going to tuck it in on itself. There we go. So that's kind of the way it's starting. I'm going to go around, there's like a gap right here, so we don't want that because that's going to cause a seam in the pumpkin and we don't want a seam. So you might have to play around with the shape a little bit, pull some fibers here and there. Because once you get it wet and start rolling, it's going to be very hard to get those seams to go away. All right, we have that. Now comes the fun part. We're going to submerge it quickly into the water, squeeze it. You can see it's already shrunk in size significantly. And before we start rolling, again, just kind of look and see if we have any seams that might appear. Now you're going to roll it like this. Cup your hand, pinch, twist, roll. Pinch, twist, roll. If you've ever seen someone make like fresh mozzarella or cheese, it's kind of a similar process. All right, so you can see it coming apart a bit, so I'll dunk it back in the water. Squeeze just a little bit. All right. Pinch, twist, roll. So I got the bottom going. So I'm going to do that to the top now. This is going to need more twisting than pinching because that's where all of the fibers are coming together. So we kind of just want to starting to take shape here. Once you kind of get it into a nice ball, you can use both your hands. And you want to do this slow because you don't want the ball to fall apart. Kind of like rolling clay or Play-Doh. And like I said, the water in the soap is what's causing friction in all those fibers, and it's going to cause them to stick together. Another way that you could do this that doesn't involve water and soap is called needle felting. So you would do a similar beginning process, and then you would take a specialty needle and poke and roll and poke and roll. And that's what causes you to have a ball. So this is relying on friction of soap and water in your hands. That's relying on the friction of the needle, which has barbed edges, to pull the wool down and up and down and up. So kind of like stitching it together. All right, so you can see it's coming together. We do have a little bit of a seam, but that's okay. You can make that the top or the bottom of your pumpkin, because the top we're going to cover with a leaf and the bottom will be sitting down on the table, so it won't be that noticeable. The tighter you squeeze, the faster you roll, the smaller the ball will be. We don't want it too small. And then you can also kind of reshape it with your hands like that. Because I kind of want my pumpkin to look a little bit more pumpkin shaped. All right. So that looks okay. I think we'll use this as the top. So after you've gotten it to the shape and the size that you want it to, what you need to do before you let it dry is to wrap it with some thread, because this is what's going to cause lines in your pumpkin. So let me get a pair of scissors and uncut that so you can see what it looks like. All right. So I tied this with some clear fishing line tightly because I wanted my indentations to really show up. So now you can see we've got some lines in our pumpkin. So this is still a little bit wet to the touch, so I'm gonna let it dry a little bit more, but the indentations are there. That is a pumpkin. Now, you'll tie this one up and let it sit and dry. And then the next step we have is to make our stem and a leaf if you so desire. So this one, we're not gonna do a ball. I think I wanna try to make the stem a little bit smaller. So you're gonna fold it in half and then fold it again and then get that tail over as much as you can. All right, so we have it like in a little strip here. In the water we go. Squeeze and roll like a snake. There we go. I think I'll try to double it up a little bit more. This one goes by real quickly. A little bit chunkier on one side than I like it to be. All right, that's the stem, easy peasy. For the leaf, I'm gonna pull this apart a little bit more. Now when you're dealing with roving, I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but I was just so excited to get started. Don't ever cut it. Do not take scissors and cut it, ever. Don't ever, 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 ever cut it. You pull it apart with your hands until you get to the smallest quantity that you need. When you cut the thread, what you're doing is breaking apart and fraying all of the fibers. So when you comb it and card it, it creates this nice static electricity and synchronicity in the fiber. So that means that they all kind of align, kind of like a magnet. They become all aligned. When you cut it, you're cutting that. You're creating all of these split ends and barbs, and so they'll not come together when you dunk it in water or when you do it with a needle. So don't ever cut it. Now, you can trim it a little bit after it's formed, but if you try to cut it before you have it dried, it will be a disaster. Okay, so we're gonna make our little leaf. This one, just gonna kind of do flat. All right, there's our leaf. Now, I won't be able to show you this right now because our leaves are still wet. But what you'll need to do after everything has completely dried is to sew these on. So you'll get your needle and your thread and you're going to connect your pumpkin to your stem. So we have this little extra tail here, so we're going to connect it off to the side. You're going to take your needle, insert into the top, pull through to the bottom, go right back in, and pull through again. You want to make sure that it's sewn in there, but not too visible. That's why we're going through the bottom. So when you have it sitting here, you won't see it. After you get your stem, if you did do a leaf, you're going to take the leaf and cover that little L you made with the stem so it looks like that. And when you sew this down, you're going to sew across the middle, just like the veins of a leaf. So you'll sew across and then you'll do little lines down the side. So you want to make it look like there are veins in the leaf. So down the middle and some lines to the side. And then that will be your pumpkin. All right, friends. That was Little Stitches for October. I hope you had fun It's not too messy, but go ahead and take a picture of what you did, send it to us at the library, we'll repost it. And I hope you guys have a spooky, spectacular Halloween. We have Dino-vember coming up and some really cool things to do for Art Explorers and Little Stitches. I enjoyed making this pumpkin with you, and I can't wait to see you guys next time at the library. Have a good day.